Is the fried chicken industry a concern for Korea's economy? How is the bubble of fried chicken restaurants, the most popular business startup among the self-employed in Korea, affecting the economy? Is the scaling back of basic old age pension a retreat in welfare policies? We talk about the welfare policies suitable for Korea. As ICT technology develops, invasion of privacy and security accidents are increasing. We take a look at technologies created to solve this issue. Fake money is spotted from all around the world. We meet a high-tech detector which can detect counterfeit money quickly and precisely. The Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, is the scene of the divided Korean peninsula. What is the political and historical significance of the DMZ?
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon, and welcome to Bizline. As you can see, it's an absolutely gorgeous day here in Yeouido in central Seoul, and we've got a very full show for you today. We'll be covering everything from taxation policy to online security to fried chicken, so do stay with us. But before we go to those stories, we'll begin the show, as we always do, by taking a look at all the breaking business and economic stories hitting headlines across South Korea this week.
The government says that it plans to spend roughly $333 billion next year, which is a 4.6% increase from this year's spending. More than $98 billion, or nearly 30% of the total, has been earmarked for the welfare sector. But Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok says the budget proposal is centered on revamping the sluggish economy. The draft was drawn up under the premise that Asia's fourth largest economy will grow by 3.9% next year, which is slightly lower than the government's previous outlook. The Korean economy ranked 15th in the world in terms of gross domestic product last year, accounting for 1.6% of the global economy. Korea's nominal GDP came to nearly $1.13 trillion in 2012, with its ranking remaining unchanged for 5 straight years, according to data from the World Bank. Korea ranked 11th in 2004, but fell steadily until it settled at 15th in 2008. Since then, the ranking has not changed, a situation that market watchers attribute to the fallout from the global financial crisis. No final winner was announced for Korea's fighter experimental project, better known as the FX project, that aims to replace the nation's aging fleet of combat aircrafts. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration announced that the $7.3 billion deal would be relaunched from square one, as no contender met the needs of the Korean government and the Korean Air Force. Samsung Electronics has been named the world's second most innovative company in the world, knocking Google from its number 2 spot, but failing to dislodge Apple. The Boston Consulting Group's annual report on the world's 50 most innovative companies put the Korean tech giant in second place this year, marking a rapid rise from its 26th place in 2008. The US-based consulting company said the technology and telecommunications industries continue to take the lead on innovation this year.
It's not just Kentuckians who love fried chicken. Koreans are crazy about this stuff too. But today, with fried chicken joints now found on almost any street corner in Korea, it's no longer a sure bet for those entrepreneurs hoping to enter the sector. How important is fried chicken in South Korea's SME, or small and medium enterprise economy? Let's find out.
Walk around residential areas in South Korea and you'll notice that there are many chicken takeout delivery service restaurants practically around every corner. It shows how much Koreans enjoy chicken, mostly as a nighttime snack. Motorcycles are easily spotted in the evening as they make deliveries. Even the Wall Street Journal reported recently about many chicken restaurants operating in high competition in South Korea. So how popular is chicken in this country?
일주일에 한 3번 먹는 것 같아요. 그리고 좀 치킨이 배달시키기도 편하고 맛도 좋고 하니까 자주 먹는 편이에요.
소스 같은 그런 재료가라든지 이런 걸 좋아하다 보니까 치킨이랑 곁들여 먹었을 때 더욱더 맛있는 것 같아서 자주 즐겨 먹는 편입니다.
Chicken became Koreans' everyday snack since the late 1960s, and its consumption has been on the rise, as indicated by various chicken restaurants, including franchises around the nation. Chicken consumption in South Korea has been rising over the last decade and has surpassed beef consumption since 2004. Last year, Koreans are reported to have eaten 608,000 tons of chicken, and that means about 420 million chickens a day. As a testimony to the rise in popularity of chicken restaurants, mostly serving fried and various flavored menus, there is even a specialized chicken university in the outskirts of Seoul, established in the year 2000. People come here to learn how to make the best-tasting, juicy chicken dishes. It is also a place for people wishing to open a chicken restaurant.
이곳에서 매장 운영에 관련된 제품을 만들어 보고요. 그 다음에 정리정돈, 그리고 고객에게 서비스 이런 것들을 이제 교육을 받으시는 거고요. 그 미국의 햄버거 대학을 저희가 벤치마킹을 해서 2000년도에 경기도 광주에 설립을 했었습니다.
The staff here also operate a research and development center to come up with the best tasting chicken dishes to continue to maintain competitive edge in the business.
저희 R&D 센터에서는요, 약 4,600여 종의 치킨과 관련된 제품들을 개발을 했습니다. 그 중에서 많은 분들께 소비자 조사를 통해서 확정되어 있는 제품을 지금 출시를 하고 있고요.
A strong interest to learn the secrets of making delicious chicken menus has also attracted students from other countries.
We are taking the franchisee, BBQ franchise in Bangladesh, the first ever. So that's why I joined there in BBQ as a restaurant and training manager. So I just come here for learning how we operate BBQ operation in Bangladesh, how we prepare all the food, all the products, and all the ingredients.
The rise in interest also reflects how large self-employed mom-and-pop stores are when one decides to become an entrepreneur.
소자본으로서 많은 이윤을 창출을 할 수 있다고 제가 들었습니다. 열심히만 하면은 누구나 성공을 할 수 있는 이런 시스템이 BBQ에서 지원을 하기 때문에, 그래서 일단 품질로서는 제가 여기서 배우기만 하면은 현장에서 제가 발로 고객들에게 홍보만 하면은 매출이 바로 이어질 수 있기 때문에.
Most of the people who wish to start a business decide to become self-employed. And that means finding operations that are manageable, and to them, opening a restaurant is the preferred choice. It is more evident to people who take early retirement but need to have a steady flow of income.
네, 국내 창업은 생계형에 집중되어 있는 모습인데요. 국제기구에 따르면 생계형 창업 비중이 35%로 저개발 국가의 평균이 35%에 이를 만큼 굉장히 생계형 비중이 높습니다. 국내 자영업 창업자들의 한 10명 중에 6명이 3년 내에 폐업하는 모습을 보이는데요. 밀착형으로 좀 멘토링을 통해서 회복을 지원해 줄 수 있는 방안들 같은 멘토링 제도를 좀 적극적으로 활용할 필요가 있습니다.
So when people plan to have their own business, many turn to a franchise to learn the know-how. Still, starting a business doesn't mean instant success. An industry report shows that every year in South Korea, some 7,400 new chicken restaurants open for business, while about 5,000 existing chicken places shut down. About half of the new chicken restaurants closed down within 3 years, and 80% of them within 10 years. Like any other businesses, it is not easy to survive the tough competition. However, it is a chance that many people take, believing that it is all worth the risk.
직장 다니면서 이렇게 하다 보니까 직장의 그 수입면이나 모든 면에서 봤을 때 그래도 장사도 낫지 않나 그런 생각도 오고, 어떻게 하면 잘 할 수 있을까 그런 생각을 가지고 열정을 가지고 이렇게 일을 했을 경우는 분명히 좋은 결과가 있다고 봅니다.
Although the odds of failure aren't that high compared to other businesses, there is still a call to create an environment for people to venture out to diverse areas of entrepreneurship, not just in eating, or in this case, chicken restaurants.
국내 창업이 지나치게 생계형으로 집중되지 않고 창조형으로 좀 다양화될 필요가 있는데요. 이를 위해서는 초중고 단계부터 직업 교육이라든지 창업 교육 이런 것들 좀 상설화할 필요가 있고요. 또한 창조형 창업을 지속적으로 지원할 수 있는 벤처, 엔젤 등 민간 투자 자본을 좀 확충할 필요가 있습니다.
Thus, there need to be a systemic support to diversify interests in entrepreneurship. Furthermore, education in the early ages is necessary to develop creativity and talent to expand interest.
It's been a tough week for the South Korean government. Health and Welfare Minister Chin Young has resigned following a cutback to planned welfare spend. Moreover, the whole issue of how to fund the welfare plan proposed during last year's presidential election is now a very hot political potato indeed. To discuss this and related issues, we have with us a man who is formally described as President Park Geun-hye's economic tutor. He's a professor at Suknyum Women's University and a regular and welcome guest on Bizline. Professor Shin Se-dong, thanks for being here and welcome back to Bizline.
Glad to be back.
Great stuff. Now, South Korea. Welfare policies have been a significant sort of political battleground here since, I think, 2008, 2009, 2010. Why is there such a strong interest in South Korea right now in welfare?
I think there are two reasons. One is economic and the other one is pretty social and political one.
Mm-hmm.
Economic reason for the interest in welfare is that, apparently Korea has been growing very, very fast and the per capita GDP over 20,000, but there are so many people feeling they're not as rich as they used to be. So there's some kind of a dissatisfaction about economic growth. That's one economic reason. And the other one is, I think, political and social one, in the sense that people realize that the society is so polarized that I think this government has to do something, unless that kind of a polarization might lead to a kind of social collapse.
Unrest,
so I think that there are two reasons for the worry about the welfare.
Okay. Now, traditionally, of course, South Korea hasn't had a strong welfare system. South Koreans have generally relied upon their extended families to assist them if they're having financial or socio-economic difficulties. Given the strength of that social system, does South Korea actually need an economically funded welfare system run by the government?
The point is, yes, Korean society has been pretty influenced by Confucian morale, that the family ties between the fathers and grandfathers and the grandsons. So that kind of family ties has been pretty strong for the last 100 years. But now, recently, that kind of tradition has been changing, in the sense that there's so many single elderly person living by themselves, and still compared to other European countries, still, the Korean society is kind of Confucius society, but the speed of change is so rapid that you will see so many independent and the elderly people that they have to live alone. So I think that the government has to do something for those helpless, the elderly person. That's, I think, why the government is trying to put more emphasis upon the elderly and the welfare system.
Okay. Speaking of the elderly, speaking of senior citizens, a recent development has been the fact that President Park's pledge to provide, I think it was 200,000 won per senior citizen per month across the board has been cut back by about 30%.
Right.
Does this signal an overall retreat in the welfare proposals President Park made during the presidential election?
Well, apparently she made a couple of apologies for not fulfilling her pledge, campaign pledges, but she emphasized that within her term she promised to do her best to keep her the presidential pledges. But realistically, I think it's going to be pretty difficult in the sense that the amount of $200 per month for a year for the people, 70% of the elderly people over 65 age, I think it is kind of a too ambitious, kind of a program, because if you go back to the case of United Kingdom about 100 years ago, when the first elderly pension program was established in 1908, the monthly payment or annual payment was one pound, and that for the elderly of 70 years of age. So you compare to the British case of 100 years ago, about a pound per year and over 70, and here Korea over 65 years of age and $2,400 a month. I mean a year. I think that's relatively speaking, it's too much a burden for the nation's budget. So I think the initial plan was too ambitious. It's too much, I think, for the Korean society to manage. So I think it's pretty natural for the government to step back a little bit to provide the 70% of the person.
Yeah, you mentioned that we do need a more realistic sort of post-election welfare policy.
Right.
A classic problem affecting all democracies, including, of course, South Korea, is this issue that while people love to have a welfare system and other social spending on the public good, very few people are willing to pay higher taxes to actually fund it. Of course, this is the wall that the South Korean government is running up against right now. It's perhaps a silly question because it's endemic to democracies, but is there a way to fund welfare policies without significantly raising taxes? How do we deal with this?
Initial design of the government was economic growth.
Yeah.
They expected that Korean economy will grow at least 4%, 4 or 5 years down the road. But from the initial year, economy was growing less than 3%, and there's no guarantee that in the future economic growth rate will be over 4%. So I think there was a miscalculation on the growth rates during her term. That was first, I think, miscalculation, and so because the economy is expected to be sluggish down the road, I think we should expect that the tax revenues will be influenced by that. That's one reason why we have to cut back a little bit from the initial programs. And another one is, if the resources cannot come from increased tax revenues, we have to rely upon national debts. So in other words, we have to allow certain increase in the national debts, either by issuing government bonds or printing more money. But there's also still strong antagonist sentiment through financing, through debts and money printing. So so there's a dilemma. That the government has to provide a certain welfare services, but that there's no tax revenues, and there's no public consensus as to national debts or money printing. So I think this is the dilemma that the current government has to face and has to solve during the last the coming 4 years.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's leave aside the tax issue for just now. You said that the government could increase its debt burden. My understanding is that compared to most Western governments, most Western democracies, South Korea's government finances are in very, very good shape. Arguably, could South Korea afford to take on a little more government debt to fund this promised and very high-profile program?
Yeah, I mean, the size of government debt depends upon how do you define the national debt, right? So, according to the government, it was about less than 50% of GDP, which is national debt. But if you include public entities such as CAPCO, something like that, the government debts or public debts, including together, would be way higher than that. So it is controversial whether Koreans budgetary situation is safe compared to the Western country. But agreeing that Korean national debt is relatively smaller than European country, I think the people and the government, as well as the opposition party, has to agree that if we want more welfare system, we have to provide the resources, and the people are reluctant to pay more taxes. Then we only choice is we allow to a certain extent increase in national debts. So other way we can't solve the dilemma. So I think sooner or later we have to have a serious talk about how extensive we have to raise our national debt, and what will be the term, and who's going to be the issue, the national debts, and that will be the critical issue of the current government.
Should Korea adopt a sort of customized social welfare system or a universal social welfare system?
I think universal welfare system is kind of unrealistic, if not quixotic, the argument, because in every country there's no universal system. Even in the Scandinavian country, you can find that there's some sort of selective and customized. So for the country like Korea, talking about the universal system too premature and too unrealistic. So the answer is customized, and within that customized services, we have constraints in resources. So still we have to have another priority. So I think the government has to focus upon which service is mostly important, which is most the critical at the current juncture. So prioritization, I think, is the first thing the government has to be careful about.
Got you. So a triage for social welfare system.
Yeah.
And coming back again to a macro question, what would you consider to be the ideal kind of social welfare system, specifically bespoke tailored for South Korea in the 21st century?
As I said, people really hate to pay more taxes, especially Korean people, and also antagonistic about the raising the national debts.
Yeah.
So the choice is, the government has to put the money into the welfare area where most critical and most needed area. I think that is the first, as I said, the health services, health benefits to the deprived, the poor people, and also we have to put some resources into childbearing, and also we have to care for the elderly, helpless elderly. So there are certain areas the government has to focus with the limited resources. That's the first thing. So as long as that limited, the resources, and those critical areas, the government should accomplish 100% of presidential election pledges. And other areas, I think, the government can postpone to the later period of the term. So prioritize and focusing upon those most critical areas, I think that is the most important thing the government should follow.
Okay. You mentioned, we were discussing this just before we started recording the show, that this has been a major issue. Welfare has been a major issue since the advent of the Lee Myung-bak administration in early 2008.
Right.
Is this issue of welfare going to continue to dominate domestic politics here in South Korea for the remainder of President Park's term?
Of course, yeah. The issue will be a lot stronger. If you look at the opposition party, they want more drastic welfare program, and the government is reluctant to, because even though the president wants to provide rather universal or more broad, comprehensive or customized services, because of the lack of resources and tax revenues, that is the binding constraints.
Yeah,
so. As economy kind of getting out of sluggishness, down the road, I think the demand will be stronger, and there's an opposition party which asks for a lot drastic, right? So I think politically, every election from now on, focal point will be the welfare issue and which party will provide the more benefit welfare system. That is going to be the critical issue for winning the election coming down the road.
Understood.
Yeah.
So no easy answers and increased debate. Dr. Shin, thank you very much for being on Bizline once again. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thank you indeed. As smart devices implementing ICT technologies proliferate, our everyday lives are becoming easier, more convenient, and arguably more fun. But there is a downside associated with the proliferation of these technologies. As they're increasingly used, so too are we see increasing rises in security breaches and invasions of privacy. Unfortunately, for every spear, there is also a shield. And our ICT sector report will be taking a look at an increasing subsector of the overall industry, that for security and safety solutions.
Smartphones, used 24 hours a day, carry all our personal information, including bank certificates, mobile cards, photos, and contact details of acquaintances. As ICT technologies evolved and our dependence on smart devices increased, risks for leakage of personal information also grew. We take a look at security solutions that can protect our personal information and privacy. A housewife who lives in Seoul went to the police recently to report a smishing case. She used a mobile certification to register at a free file download website and was unknowingly charged around $20 a month.
등록할 때 회원 정보를 입력을 해야 되는데 거기서 이제 휴대폰 번호를 넣어야 되니까 그때 저절로 빠져나간 거죠. 휴대폰 번호가 들어감과 동시에 그들이 빼간 거예요, 돈을. 제가 이용하지도 않은 금액이 빠져나갔다는 걸 나중에 알게 되니까 금액은 소액이었지만 너무너무 기분이 나쁜 거예요. 그리고 6개월이니까 그것도 꽤 되는 금액이고 저 같은 주부한테는 그것도 좀 부담스러운 금액이 될 수 있거든요.
The method of smishing is becoming more and more sophisticated. If you click on a mobile wedding invitation or a free coupon, you are charged a small sum of money. Recently, these text messages disguise themselves as messages from credible financial institutions or government agencies, such as a court or a post office, so great caution is needed. Indeed, smishing-related crimes reported to the Korean National Police Agency this year surged 8-fold from the same period last year. The amount of damage this year totaled $3.25 million, jumping nearly 7-fold from the last year. Problems related to exposure of private life are more serious than leakage of personal information. Smart TV cameras in our living room can also turn into hidden cameras that can watch our homes at any time. As ICT technologies evolved, risks of leakage of personal information also rose. We need to download vaccine programs in advance to protect our valuable personal information.
스마트폰이 최근에는 거의 가장 사용자들에게 가장 많이 접해지는 기기 중에 하나고, 그리고 그 안에 사용자들이 필요로 하는 많은 여러 가지 정보들이 있습니다. 뭐 사진도 있을 거고, 개인정보, 금융정보, 뭐 주소록 등등 여러 가지 이제 소중한 정보들이 있는데, 이런 정보들을 노리는 악성 코드들이 워낙 많기 때문에 그런 악성 코드들로부터 사용자들을 안전하게 보호하기 위해서 모바일 백신은 반드시 필요합니다.
With the growth of the ICT industry, information security technologies will develop through continuous research. The information security company is distributing free mobile vaccines named Alyak pill. Due to unrelenting smishing scams, smishing preventative functions have been added to mobile vaccines recently. The mobile vaccine automatically deletes smishing text messages. It detects if the application has been forged or falsified and notifies the user.
최근에 법원을 사칭한 그런 스미싱 문자가 많이 나오거든요. 그래서 법원이 보내는 것처럼 해서 간편하게 등기 조회가 가능합니다 해서 간단한 URL 적고 저한테 보내보겠습니다.
We can prevent smishing accidents by using Alyak Vaccine's function to block smishing. It then analyzes the text message's URL link to find out if it contains malicious spyware or malware and sends smishing warning notifications to the user.
스미싱 차단 기능이 있는 백신을 사용하는 것이 중요하고, 휴대폰 소액 결제 한도를 최소화로 시켜놓거나 아니면 아예 소액 결제를 차단하는 것이 가장 안전합니다.
Using repackaged malicious applications is another way to infect smartphones. The method usually involves copying and forging popular paid applications and distributing them for free. iOS smartphones can only download apps from its own app store, but Android smartphones are relatively weak in security as it can download apps from unofficial markets. If you download a forged or falsified app, it will automatically install an adware app. For financial apps, it will change the victim's bank account details and send money to the fraudster. The best way to prevent this from happening is to completely block forging or falsifying applications.
최근 루팅 탈옥 후에도 사용이 가능한 은행 앱이 등장하고 여러 은행 통합 서비스를 제공하는 앱이 등장하고 있어 더욱더 보안이 취약점이 노출되고 있는데 악성 코드가 내재된 유사 앱이 배포될 경우 이에 대한 보안 대책이 따로 없어 스마트폰 이용자는 금융 피해 위협에 노출되어 있다고 볼 수 있습니다.
A local security company has recently launched App Safer, a solution which blocks repackaging, forging, and falsifying applications. Source code security is the most important factor in smartphone applications. Copying and forging applications can be prevented by blocking leakage of source codes. If the existing solutions merely used obfuscating methods, AppSafer strengthens security levels by encrypting source codes.
앱 개발사는 어플리케이션 보안의 중요성을 인식하고 어플리케이션 보안 기술을 적용하고 사용자들이 위변조된 앱을 통해서 개인정보 유출이나 금전적 피해를 보지 않도록 하는 것이 중요합니다.
With new methods of smishing emerging every day, it is more important for us to keep security rules ourselves, rather than getting help from various security solutions.
공신력이 있는 앱스토어를 이용하고 개발자 및 개발사의 정보가 맞는지 확인될 경우에만 어플리케이션을 설치해야 합니다. 또한 자동 보안 점검 기능을 가진 앱을 설치하여 위협에 노출되는 것을 최대한 줄이는 것이 현실적인 방법이라고 할 수 있습니다.
스마트폰을 편리하게 사용할 수 있는 기능들을 이제 백신에다가 추가를 해서 사용자들이 꼭 백신뿐만 아니라 여러 가지 이제 단순한 간편한 관리 기능 같은 것들을 편하게 사용할 수 있게 그런 기능들을 추가하려는 계획을 갖고 있습니다.
In an era when all our personal information is stored in small smart devices, while countless CCTVs and vehicle black boxes are filming us 24 hours a day, the importance of developing information security solutions is expected to continue to grow.
Counterfeiters who produce faux currencies are found in many of the world's darker and more shadowy corners. And with the advent of high-tech, high-precision printers, their wares are becoming increasingly sophisticated. In response to this, a South Korean company has come up with a high-tech solution. It's a device which can easily and precisely detect the counterfeit currencies of some 60 countries around the world. How do they do it? Let's meet this week's hidden champion.
Money has been an essential part of human history. As money value increases, the number of crime that involves counterfeit money transactions also increases. In Korea, the cases of counterfeit money use has been on the rise in recent years. According to a recent research, cases of counterfeit money crime has jumped by 225% since 2008 to reach 8,202 cases 4 years later in 2012. Counterfeit money crime is on the rise amid an economic downturn, while driven by the technological advancement of digital machineries like printers and scanners. Nations around the world are experiencing these same challenges with counterfeit money crime amid a long-term economic slowdown.
전 세계적으로 유통되는 미국 달러화가 한 1조 1,000억 불 정도 이렇게 유통이 되고 있는데요. 실질적으로 한 40억 불 정도가 전 세계적으로 미국 달러 위패가 유통되고 있다고 보시면 되고요. 국내에서도 이제 연평균 한 25만 불 내외로 지속적으로 이제 발견이 되고 있습니다. 물론 이제 과거에는 위조지폐 수준 자체가 복사라든가 아주 이제 조악한 이런 수준이었는데 요즘은 인쇄기술, 복사기술이 워낙 발달되다 보니까 개인들이 충분히 위조지폐를 제작이 가능하고 또한 국제범죄조직에 의한 어떤 대량의 위조지폐까지 현재 범람하고 있는 이런 현실이라고 보시면 됩니다.
There is one Korean company that has set out with an ambitious goal to eliminate counterfeit money around the world. C-Tech is a company that specializes in making money counting machines, as well as high-accuracy counterfeit money identification devices. It has reached global status with recognition from the worldwide financial sector. CTEK's high-accuracy counterfeit money identification devices include the latest technology and is well known for its fast identification ability around the world. The device is able to identify currencies from around 63 nations through image processing, serial number identification, and PC application programs, as well as various data interface functions.
세계 모든 지폐에는 위조 지폐를 방지하기 위해서 지폐 안에 보안 기능들이 다 들어가 있습니다. 적외선, 형광 센서, 자외선, 마그네틱 자석 성분으로 위폐를 검출을 할 수가 있습니다.
The Eye Hunter has been selected by users as the best product. The device can identify up to 10 types of currencies and is able to pick out counterfeit currencies non-stop with US dollars and euros as well as other regional currencies while recognizing denominations. Money counting devices that we normally see at banks and exchange booths are CTEK products. CTEK's competitive edge lies in its products that are able to count money accurately while identifying counterfeit money perfectly.
지금까지 약 80여 개국 이상 지폐의 인식 기술과 위조 지폐 판별 기술을 개발 완료한 경험을 토대로 새롭게 출시되는 지폐하고 미래에 개발되어야 할 지폐를 보다 빠르고 정확하게 판별할 수 있는 능력을 가지고 있습니다.
A lot of overseas buyers visit CTEK and are moved by the latest technology and speedy after-sales service the company provides.
We believe that CTEK is one of the best manufacturers in the world. When we have a problem in our country, CTEK response time is very fast.
위패가 계속 나오기 때문에 그걸 어느 정도로 빨리 정확하게 업그레이드 해주느냐, 그게 이제 경쟁력 중에 하나거든요. 저희가 40% 정도가 이제 그 기술 인력이기 때문에 저희가 대응하는 거나 그 감별력을 좀 높이는 데 좀 빠르고요. 이 나라에 와서 또 업그레이드 해주기를 원하고 하는 경우가 있을 때마다 바로바로 저희가 대응을 해서 아무래도 좀 신뢰를 많이 얻는 편입니다.
CTEK machinery is spotted at one of the biggest exchange booths in Myeongdong. The money counting machine is an essential item at this exchange booth because it helps to sort out counterfeit bills while providing the accurate amount of money to people who come to exchange currency.
위패 감별 능력에서 좀 확실히 뛰어나고 그 다음에 돈 그렇게 건전별로 이렇게 세고 고장이 좀 덜 나고 큰 고액 화폐를 바꿀 때 그 화폐 그 감별 기능이 없다 그러면 이런 사업 못 하죠.
CTEK has a competitive edge to survive in the financial industry backed by its latest technology and numerous licenses. CTEK items are selling out fast at 50 countries around the world with growing recognition in the global financial sector. The company's success is being reflected onto rising annual sales, with exports accounting for most of it, and there is more expectation in terms of export sales predicted to reach over $55 million next year.
우리가 이제 일상생활에서 돈 없이는 살 수가 없습니다. 물론 신용카드라든가 플라스틱 머니가 많이 발달은 되어 있지만은 특히 아시아 지역 같은 경우에는 현찰 수요가 워낙 높고 또한 유럽 같은 경우, 미국 같은 경우에도 현찰 수요는 꾸준히 있습니다. 돈이 없어지지 않는 한 돈 관련 기저제는 산업이 반드시 육성이 돼야 할 부분이고 또한 돈이 없어진다 하더라도 그에 따른 대체 수단이 있기 때문에 항상 그에 따른 제반 산업이라든가 육성을 해야 된다고 봅니다.
As counterfeit money manufacturing becomes more sophisticated, the need for a highly meticulous counterfeit recognition technology is needed. CTEK is at the forefront of preventing counterfeit money circulation. And with it, the safety of global finance lies in CTEK.
Korea is, along with Cyprus, one of only 2 divided countries on Earth at present. Bisecting the 2 Koreas is the notorious DMZ, the so-called demilitarized zone, which is actually the most heavily fortified frontier on the planet. Yet now, South Korean President Park Geun-hye has suggested the establishment of a peace park astride this high-tension strip of real estate. In our North Korean segment, we take an up-close, personal, and sometimes surprising look at the reality of today's DMZ.
In July 27, 1953, the armistice agreement to stop the war between two Koreas was signed after the war claimed millions of lives during 37 months. 60 years have passed since then. In the Joint Security Area inside of the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, armed South and North Korean soldiers are gazing at each one's every move across the military demarcation line without moving an inch, reminding the war between two Koreas has never ended. Ironically, the demilitarized zone on the Korean peninsula has become one of the world's most heavily fortified places. During an address to the U.S. Congress in May, South Korean President Park Geun-hye brought up an idea of establishing a peace park inside of the DMZ.
The demilitarized zone must live up to its name, a zone that strengthens the peace, not undermine it. It is with this vision in mind that I hope to work toward an international park inside the DMZ. It will be a park that sends a message of peace to all of humanity.
The DMZ, which was largely untouched by humans for 6 decades, is believed to have turned into a nature reserve with a range of wild animals and plants, although some parts of the zone are damaged by military operations carried out by the two neighboring nations for more than half a century. The DMZ on the peninsula runs along the military demarcation line marked off near the 38th parallel north, which divides the Koreas roughly in half. The zone is about 250 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide.
1953년 7월 27일 6.25 전쟁이 종결되면서 국제법에 의해서 선명된 한반도의 당시의 군사적인 대치선을 남북으로 2km 확장해서 평화지대화하고 비무장화해서 한반도에서 잠정적인 전쟁을 중단시키는 그런 성격을 가지고 태어났습니다.
With the cease of the Korean War, the DMZ has become not only the permanent border physically dividing two Koreas, but also one of the most important and tense ideological fronts during the Cold War. The UN forces led by the US troops supported South Korea during the war against North Korea that was backed by the Communist Soviet Union and China.
굉장히 그 중무장한 군사력에 대치하고 있고 또 남북한의 갈등과 경쟁뿐만 아니라 어떤 강대국의 역학관계까지 포함하고 있는 이런 차원에서 보면은 한반도의 비무장지대는 굉장히 독특한 의미를 가진다고 볼 수 있습니다.
The DMZ, which is a buffer area originally designed to prevent physical warfare, is heavily guarded by the North and the South on the peninsula, symbolizing confrontation and separation.
지난 60년 동안 이제 그 한반도에 있어서 이 비무장지대는 그러한 비무장 지대의 의미를 벗어나서 중무장지대로 지금 변화되고 있습니다. 언제든지 비무장지대 안에서 양 군대가 이렇게 그 참 군사적 충돌을 할 수 있는 그러한 위험성을 지금 한반도의 그 비무장지대는 내포하고 있다는 게 이게 참 큰 문제점이라고 볼 수 있습니다.
4 underground tunnels were found near the DMZ, and North Korea is believed to have built them for the purpose of infiltrating into South Korea to carry out preemptive surprise attacks anytime. A total of 115 violations of the armistice agreement inside of the DMZ have been reported since the ceasefire. These violations by North Korea include only major ones occurred on land, excluding outbreaks in the air and on the sea.
비무장지대에서의 군사적 우위를 점하기 위해서 또 굉장히 많은 노력을 했던 것도 사실이에요. 과거에 북한이 남침용 목적으로 파놓은 땅굴이 발견되기도 하였고요. 또 76년이죠. 비무장지대에서 미군 그 젊은 장교 2명이 북한에 의해서 살해를 당하기도 하였고 이런 그 무장지대 못지않은 그런 그 이제 그 상처가 있었던 것도 사실입니다.
But with growing military, political, and civilian exchange between the two countries starting from the 2000s, after the inter-Korean summits held in Pyongyang in 2000 and 2007, perceptions of the DMZ began to change slowly.
지금의 DMZ는 긴장 관계뿐만 아니라 긴장 관계를 해소할 수 있는 틈새라 그럴까요? 그런 국면들도 여기저기에 발견되어서 복합적인 DMZ의 모습을 볼 수 있는 그런 현실이죠.
Following a series of inter-Korean talks, both Koreas agreed on reconnecting roads and railways across the DMZ. Currently, 27.3-kilometer and 27.5-kilometer railway tracks are restored on the western and the eastern part of the peninsula, each along the roads. Although it's suspended for now, civilians were allowed to cross the DMZ by bus to visit the Gumgang Mountain Resort from 2003 for tours. People also crossed the border inside of the DMZ regularly to work at the jointly run industrial complex in Gaesong.
비무장지대는 정말 대결의 상징이죠. 군사적으로, 정치적으로. 그러나 이제 우리가 남북 간에 가장 또 쉽게 만날 수 있는 것도 이제 비무장지대죠. 그래서 이제 앞으로 이제 교류와 협력이 활발하게 이루어질 수 있는 그런 지역이다.
The Park Geun-hye administration is currently working on building a park inside of the DMZ. Related government bodies and civilian institutes prepared a draft of a master plan for the park since President Park proposed the idea in May. North Korea balked at the proposal, while doubts over the feasibility of establishing the park are prevalent. Still, some experts believe it may be one of the few grand projects by two Koreas that could bring a peace to the DMZ.
비무장지대 평화적 이용은 단순히 한반도의 평화 안정뿐만 아니라 동북아 전체에 서로가 신뢰를 회복하고 상생할 수 있는 그런 중요한 역할을 할 수 있다고 생각합니다.
No one knows when the DMZ on the Korean peninsula could be completely free of armed forces and weapons, but it is important for two Koreas to continue to work together to settle peace in the DMZ and on the peninsula in the end.
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do join us next week. We'll be taking a look at how South Korean companies, technologies and policies are contributing to the global green growth phenomena. It's hot stuff. Do stay with us. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Thanks for watching and goodbye.